Uh, Here you see the deconstruction of the original land nexus theory. The original land nexus theory uh, presupposed that society is made up of two sectors only, the labor sector and the capital. That is typical of Western industrialized countries. Mm. But coming back to the Philippines, I found out that the there is a doubling of those sectors in the case of the Philippines and probably most of uh, uh, the so-called developing countries. There is the so-called informal sector. No? So the three actors in the original uh, urban land nexus theory, which are households, firms, and government, uh, is multiplied by two because there is a what is like a cell division in biology. You know? uh, Cell division is actually multiplication. So, uh, in the case of households, there are formal uh, house builders and there are informal house builders. In the case of firms or business, there are formal businesses and there are informal businesses. And in the case of government, there is the national government and there is the local government. And although we are still a unitary, you still have the unitary form of government, just like in UK. Uh, Unlike UK, we have a limited devolution of powers. So uh, there are now powers and responsibilities devolved to local governments. In the UK, local governments were simply implementers of uh, planning and policy, which emanates from the central government. So we have two government bodies now, in fact, and then households and firms also are split into two. That makes six actors overall, and the households and firms are represented here in the circle because they are uh, the sectors in the front line of occupying and using land. So both formal and informal households and formal and informal firms are the very active ones in the occupation and use of land for urban purposes. And then we have the national government and the local government. The national government, uh, if we take the circle as the urban land nexus, or the resort of the occupation and use by the different actors of urban land. Okay, the national government uh, influences the location and shape of the built environment through implicit and explicit policies. Implicit policies come in the form of laws, no? Republic Acts, For example, the law creating the special economic zone, uh, identifying something like 70 plus, no, 70 plus localities all over the country to be potentially used for industrial and commercial purposes. Uh, so that's implicit because it does not uh, simply identifies locations, but it does not uh, force people to locate there. Okay, it it's up to both capital and labor to respond to this implicit policy. Uh, at the very least, capitalists looking for places to invest should look at the cities and municipalities that are enumerated in the law and see how feasible it is for them to locate. And once the capital investors locate there, labor follows. Uh, uh, so there is both capital and labor migration. It is not true that when a mayor invites investors to locate in his town, it is not true that the investor is going to hire the local people as laborers. Uh, the the truth is only the unskilled and low skilled laborers are recruited by the firms that locate there. Uh, the rest of the manpower requirement will be recruited from migration uh, because the local population may not have the necessary skill and knowledge to be hired. Okay, so that's a that's an illusion that most mayors uh, uh, entertain. They thought they could create jobs for their people by inviting uh, investors from outside. Okay, that's an example. Explicit policies come in the form of projects, especially infrastructure projects. Okay, so when the national government, having identified a particular town or city as a potential special economic zone, the national government would then provide the access to the place or the site. And having provided that facility, it would become quite attractive for capital investors because the cost of providing access is already borne by the government. Okay, so that's another uh, example. Okay, now local governments have their own powers, inherent powers, but they also have devolved powers and resources. So using both inherent and devolved powers, they utilize those in their urban planning and management. Okay, but usually in urban planning and management, the local government becomes reactive.
Yes.
Yeah, the local government becomes reactive, uh, trying to correct uh, certain problems that is created by the initial action of the national government and the reaction of capital. Okay. One example might be that the site chosen for an uh, industrial firm uh, that is priced by the investor is already occupied by residents.
Correct.
Okay, so uh, the residents, of course, try to preserve their place, but the investors want to displace them. So that's a problem, and they call on the local government to do to do uh, the mitigation or arbitration. Okay. And a usual example of a solution provided by the local government is relocate. Relocate the original settlers here. But the government relocation areas, as we know, are too far away. Uh, they're too far away. So those who once resided here and who became laborers in the locating firm had to travel from the far away resettlement site to the new to where he works, and so uh, finding the trouble the travel to work too expensive, he relocates.
Yeah.
Okay. He relocates close to the factory. Uh, so those who live close to the factory later on complain that they are breathing polluted air, polluted water, etc. So they again complain to the local government. And what solution does the local government give?